Go. So ranked choice voting, we want to bring it to Washington State. So I am Kit Muehlman. I've been working with FairVote Washington for, I don't know, 3 years. And I started thinking about ranked choice voting after the 2016 election because I was really upset about the way things were going. And then I remembered ranked choice voting and how many things it could change, what a difference it would make in our politics. And I committed then to bringing ranked choice voting to Washington to myself privately, knowing nothing about how to do that. And fortunately, FairVote Washington was formed with people who know a lot more than I do. And I'm just happy to be working with them. My co-host is Jessie Post.
Hi, my name is Jessie. I'm also a Whatcom chapter co-lead. And I came to ranked choice voting because I lived in China and Vietnam in my mid-20s, and I came back to the States just 2 years ago. And I was really appalled at the political divisive climate that I returned to. And I really wondered what had happened while I was gone. And I didn't know what, as a regular person, I could do to make politics less icky. And I met Kit last year at the Bellingham Sea Feast Festival, and she introduced me to ranked choice voting, and I started attending some of the ranking parties, and I got pretty into it. And what changed me from being a casual email scroller to an active volunteer is I feel that bringing ranked choice voting to Washington State is really an achievable goal for a group of citizens. So here I am, fully on board. And thank you, Amy, for having us here today. We're delighted to present to everyone. Let's quickly just take a look at our agenda of what we're going to be looking at today and talking about. First, we're going to address some of the problems that we have in our current system. We're going to give you, of course, an explanation of what ranked choice voting is. We also have a little mock election that we'll all do together, so we'll be able to actually vote using ranked choice voting online and see how that works. And next, we'll discuss some of the other benefits of ranked choice voting. And then we'll cover where it's currently used, what some of the concerns are for ranked choice voting, and we'll wrap it up by telling you what's happening here in Washington State and ways you can get involved.
I also wanted to mention that our director, Lisa Aero, is here tonight. And if you have any questions right in the moment, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question. And we'll also hang around for a bit afterwards and talk about what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm. So our current voting method drives voters into one of two corners. It pressures us to vote for the candidate that we think can win instead of the one we like the best, leaving us feeling like our vote doesn't matter. It rewards fear-mongering and attack ads. Ranked choice voting addresses these problems simply and effectively by giving voters a stronger, more nuanced voice. So let's look at our first problem, vote splitting. A textbook example was Oregon's governor's race in 1990. Two conservative candidates ran, moderate Republican Frohnmeyer and far-right Mobley. And he ran as an independent and split the conservative vote. And you can imagine being a voter who likes Mobley, but you've seen the polling, you know he's not actually going to win this race. You'd probably face pressure to vote strategically for Frohnmeyer rather than for who you truly prefer. You're afraid voting for Mobley is just going to hand victory to Roberts, the one person running that you really don't want to win. And that's exactly what happened. The conservative vote was split, so Roberts won and became governor, even though more than half the voters preferred a conservative candidate. This is sometimes called the spoiler effect. You can see how Mobley's candidacy spoiled what in all likelihood would have been a victory for Frohnmeyer had Mobley just not run. And this is a huge flaw in our current voting system. It pressures voters to vote for whichever one of the two frontrunners they find the least objectionable. Additionally, it pressures candidates to either be the favorite of one of the two major parties or else not run at all. Maybe you can think of a time when you or someone you know has felt that pressure to vote strategically rather than for your true favorite.
So here in Washington, we use a top two primary system, which was introduced as an effort to avoid the vote splitting and the spoiler effect. So all candidates run first in a primary, and only the two candidates with the most votes advance to the general election in November. So this system ensures that we no longer elect our governor and other officials with less than half the vote in the general election. So you might think that the top two primary fixes the problem of vote splitting, but really it just shifts the problem back to the primary. So we'll show you how that works. So in this rate for state treasurer in 2016, voters who wanted a Republican, the red bars, split their votes between two candidates, while those who preferred a Democrat, the blue bars, split their vote three ways. So the two Republicans got the most votes each. So under our top two system, they were the only two who advanced the general election, even though more than half the voters preferred one of the three Democrats. Under our current system, whenever similar candidates run in the same election, they punish and weaken each other and they all lose. The winner can even be the least favorite candidate by the majority of voters. Now let's take a look at another election. We saw how vote splitting worked in the 2016 treasurer's race, and you know what? It keeps happening. Recently in the August 2020 lieutenant governor's race, there were 11 candidates. The top two, Denny Heck and Mark Elias, both Democrats, got 43% of the vote between them. The majority of voters, 57%, voted for someone else. And maybe Heck or Elias would have been their second choice, but we don't know. We do know that over 40% of the voters wanted a conservative, but there will not be a conservative choice on the ballot in November.
Another problem with our current method of voting is voters can feel like their votes are wasted. A perfect example is our 2020 presidential primary this past March. Many dutiful Washingtonians filled out their ballots early and returned them in plenty of time to be counted by their local election officials. However, you may recall several of the Democratic candidates dropped out of the race just before Washington's election date. More than 25% of all the votes in that primary were for candidates who stopped running before the date. Had ranked choice voting been used in this election, voters could have indicated their other preferences. A voter who chose a candidate who dropped out would have had their vote count towards their preferred candidate that was still in the running. And these problems are more than the sum of their parts. They feed into and compound each other. Polling consistently shows that 40% of Americans don't identify with either of the two major parties. Yet election after election, those are the only options presented. Voters are dissatisfied with the lack of choices presented to them, resulting in civic disengagement and apathy. Politicians respond with fear-mongering and attacks on the other, whoever that is, to tap into people's primal fears and get more people out to vote. This polarization of politics leads to gridlock and dysfunction. It drives the wedge deeper and renews the cycle.
So a solution that we like is ranked choice voting. It's a simple improvement to the way we vote. So you as the voter can rank the candidates on the ballot, first choice, second choice, third choice, and so on. So we rank things all the time in life. It's natural to have preferences. Ask any third grader to tell you their favorite dinosaurs, and I bet they can rank their top choices. So we made a mock election with some cookies as an example. And this is an interactive part of the presentation. You get to vote. Jesse's did you put the link
Yep.
in the chat? So if you all will please go to that link and click that link, and you'll find a ranked choice ballot. And on that ballot, you can choose your first choice cookie, your second choice cookie, and so on. So I need to go there too.
Keep in mind that if you don't like a particular flavor of cookies, you do not have to rank all 4. You can rank as many or as few as you would like. So go ahead and click away from Zoom, rank your choices, and when you're finished and you're back, please go to that little reactions button at the bottom. There's a little smiley face, and just give us a thumbs up so we know that you've finished ranking, you're done with your ballot, and when we see everybody's done their thumbs up, we'll come back and we'll go through the results together. So when you're done, come back to Zoom, give us a thumbs up, and Kit will reshare her screen and we'll go over those cookie ballot choices together.
So this is fun. I can see the votes coming in.
So good. I see some thumbs up here. Thank you.
So we've used this tally before. So that's why there's so many votes on here. So we're just keeping a running tally. So do you all see is everyone back to the main screen? Do you see the colored bars, the 4 colored bars? Yeah, unmute yourself if you have any trouble, please, and let us know. Okay, so here are the results of the election. Do we have a winner, Jessie?
Not yet. In a ranked choice voting election, a candidate has to have more than 50% of the vote to win. So if you look here at this green dotted bar, that's 50%. So here it's 34.5 votes, is exactly half. So a candidate has to be beyond that to win. And so far, none of them are. Our front runner, white chocolate macadamia, only has 30% of the vote.
So what do we do, Jessie?
So what we do in a ranked choice election is we look at the candidate with the least number of votes. And in this case, that's Ginger Molasses. So they only have 16% of the vote. They are the clear loser at this point. So what we do is we eliminate Ginger Molasses from the running. And those people who voted Ginger Molasses first, we now look at those voters' second choice votes. So if you want to go ahead and click the next button, Kit.
So I'm going to suggest, before we do that, look at the bar of your first choice vote. That's where you are. So if your first choice vote was white chocolate macadamia or the next two, you stay right where you are. Just the Ginger Molasses are going to move. And because it's a different color, we can see what their second choice vote is. Where are they going to go? Oh, so most of them went to, let's see, sometimes it tells us, it's not telling me now. Most of them went to Toll House chocolate chip. Do we have a winner?
We still don't. So even though, white chocolate macadamia now has 33 and Toll House now has 36, still no one has more than 50. So again, we will eliminate the candidate with the lowest number of votes. And again, we look at just those voters, second place votes. Or in the case of that little tiny purple bar, they started at Ginger Molasses. Their second choice was oatmeal chocolate chip. We will now look at those folks' third choice.
Okay, so again, you can look at where you're standing. Imagine you're standing with your people who voted like you, and whoa, okay. So most of the oatmeal chocolate chip people wanted Toll House chocolate chip. That was the chocolate chip party. So they went over to the Toll House. So do we have a winner?
Now we do. We have a clear mandate that Toll House chocolate chip is the favorite.
Great. Thank you. So they went past 34.5, and I don't see the number anymore, but great. Okay, so now I have to find my way back somehow. Escape. No. There we go. It was hidden. It was hidden. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you. I'm going to go to the, oh.
You need to share your screen again.
Yes, I can, but I know what happened. Hang on. We got, it'd be helpful if I use two browsers. Okay. See, is that going to work? There we go.
Yep.
Okay, so we went through a ranked choice election. And what are the benefits now of ranked choice? We talked about the problems. One of the benefits is that we have more voices and more choices. So this is a photo of the Minneapolis candidates for mayor in 2017. Minneapolis has used ranked choice voting since 2009. So ranked choice voting gives voters a stronger choice because they can vote their true preference as their first choice without the need to vote strategically for one of the front runners. Ranked choice voting results in more choices on the ballot because more candidates are encouraged to run without vote splitting with other similar candidates. And ranked choice voting means that when you have a broad field of candidates, you get the winner with the broadest support. So we'll take a look at these candidates who campaign together. Now they are opponents, but they're focusing on what they have in common and asking voters to choose one of them first and rank the other second. So in a ranked choice election, candidates quickly learn that negative campaigning is simply not effective. If they start bashing all the other candidates, the supporters of the other candidates are not going to like them. And also imagine that you're a candidate. You're out knocking on doors, talking to voters. So you come to a house and you see the opponent's yard sign. And what do? Like with our current method, you just skip that house, save your time, and walk on by. But this is a ranked choice election. So you knock on the door, and when it opens, you say, I see you're supporting my opponent. But did you know that we have this issue and that issue in common? So I'd like to ask for your second choice vote. It's a whole different way of campaigning. You want to talk to all the voters.
Another benefit of ranked choice voting is it ensures more equitable proportional results when it's used on elected bodies, such as city councils, school boards, or port commissions with multiple seats. Ranked choice voting also gives us the ability to eliminate primary elections. Primaries don't necessarily have to be eliminated, but it's an option. For example, in New York City, where ranked choice voting will be implemented next year, voters will save $20 million every time ranked choice voting allows them to eliminate a runoff election. And you may not be aware, but ranked choice voting is already used widely within America. There are 20 states that use ranked choice voting somewhere in their borders in some form. And this is a growing movement, with 2 more states, Massachusetts and Alaska, voting this upcoming election whether or not they're going to adopt ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is also used around the world with great success. Australia, Ireland, and Malta have all used ranked choice voting for a century.
So who are the critics? It may be hard to believe, but not everyone loves the idea of using ranked choice voting. So some elected and party officials have been using our current method and would rather not change the method that elected them. But many elected officials from both parties are on the record in support of ranked choice voting. Some say that ranked choice voting is too confusing for voters, or some voters aren't smart enough to fill out a ranked choice ballot. But like I said, even kindergartners can tell you which dinosaur they like best and which is their second choice. Some opponents claim that RCV gives voters more than one vote, but this is not true. So imagine an ice cream truck visits your neighborhood. You want a fudgesicle, but they're all out. Next, you ask for an orange creamsicle, and you're pretty happy with your second choice. You're only eating one popsicle. In legal challenges, courts have determined that ranked choice voting gives each person one vote. And many election administrators are understandably concerned about making changes to elections. They want to make sure they have enough time and resources to update software, train staff, and educate voters. FairVote Washington is working with every auditor in the state, and we are committed to addressing their concerns.
Ranked choice voting has been used in the states since the 40s, and it's also been used abroad in nationwide elections for more than 100 years. We know it works, and polling consistently shows voters who use ranked choice voting like it, and they understand it. When candidates don't need to worry about splitting the vote, more are encouraged to run. A larger field of candidates more accurately represents the diversity of opinion amongst voters. Voters, in turn, are presented with more choices and are more likely to find a candidate with views that align with their own. Ranked choice voting allows voters to vote their true preferences, knowing that the candidate with the broadest support will be the winner. Candidates need more than 50% of the voters to at least like them to be able to win a ranked choice election. So they're disincentivized to smear their opponents, which might alienate potential second place voters. Ranked choice voting encourages candidates to reach out to all their constituents and find common ground.
So why is ranked choice voting our top priority? Think about an issue you care about the most. Could our government be doing a better job? So with all the important problems facing our country, wildfires, pandemic, a global dark money in politics, as well as so many other large systemic problems, why are we focusing on ranked choice voting? The thing is, Americans want action, but toxic politics, as usual, means gridlock and wasted time and energy. And we can change the way it works. Ranked choice voting is not a silver bullet, but it can change the tone of politics. It rewards politicians who reach out to the majority so that extremists can't dominate. It gives voters a stronger voice so that voters are more motivated to participate. And we can do it at the local level, at the state level, without a constitutional amendment. The sooner we start rewarding candidates for representing the voters, the sooner they will take action on issues we care about. So what's happening in Washington state? There will be 4 bills in the legislature next session. The local options bill, we're very hopeful this will pass. It'll be its third time's a charm. It has bipartisan support, and it will allow local areas to use ranked choice voting if they want to. It's not a mandate, it's a permissive bill. And it's necessary because currently ranked choice voting is not an option available to almost all Washington jurisdictions, even if they would like to try it. And we are closely following the court case in Yakima. It's filed under the Washington Voting Rights Act, and if the plaintiffs win, it can be a great example to the rest of the state of ranked choice voting working to ensure equitable representation.
If you would like to help bring ranked choice voting to Washington state, you can keep informed by signing up for our newsletter. Let me go ahead and quickly post some links in the chat box. We also have webinars, screenings, and chapter meetings regularly that you can sign up for on our events page. And we've, let's see, sorry, one moment, let me find those chat box links. I'll do it in a minute. If you know that more webinars and Zoom meetings are not in the cards for you, but you think ranked choice voting would be a great idea and you'd like to help support us, you can also sign up to become a recurring donor to FairVote Washington, and that would definitely help our growing organization. So now I'm going to go ahead and open things up for questions and say thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at that chat box, and like I said, I'll go ahead and post those 3 links for the newsletter, events, and donations.
Okay, we have a question from Aaron. What needs to happen to change the system in Washington state? Yes, that is the question. I I talked about the legislative legislation, and that's the easiest way to convince our legislators to pass laws that allow and even institute ranked choice voting in the state. If we don't get everything we want, we're preparing to do a statewide ballot initiative in 2021 to get a ranked choice voting on the ballot for the state in 2022. So, Aaron, did you have more questions than that? You unmute yourself and.
Yeah, actually, and thank you for being here tonight and supplying this information. How would this then affect the final election if ranked choice voting was used in the primary election? Wouldn't it still result in a two-party final election, or is?
Well, you could use the for one thing, the ranked choice voting can eliminate a primary. It can just be the whole thing. Or some people want to use ranked choice voting in the primary. So what it would mean is that it would winnow the field down to, say, 5 or whatever number people choose. But it would mean that, say, in that example of the state treasurer election in 2016, where the two Republicans were the top two, if people pick their second and third choices, you end up with a Republican and a Democrat in your final two, instead of the two who got, each of them got like less than 25% of the vote. Does that make sense? We could go back to that slide if you want.
It makes a little bit of sense.
Okay.
The other thought I had was, what happens when voters who are so loyal to a candidate choose only one choice and decide that they aren't going to make another choice after that, and you end up with candidates that don't have 50%?
That is a great question. Thank you. Yes, that's a great question. So when people only want to vote for one candidate and not anyone else, well, first of all, that doesn't really help that candidate to do that, because if they get eliminated, then I mean, it doesn't. One of the wonderful things about ranked choice voting is it's not a strategic method. It doesn't lend itself to strategy. However, if someone doesn't vote, doesn't make second choice or third choice, and their candidate is eliminated, they don't have a say in round 2 and round 3. So they're not counted in the percentages anymore. Lisa, do you want to say any more about that?
Sure, I'll jump in just for a minute, Aaron. Great questions. You know, it definitely, in this country, we don't require voters to vote. It's not mandatory. And it's not mandatory to participate in every round of our 2-round process here in Washington State. We have a primary in August and a general in November, as you all know. And, you know, voters sometimes participate in one, but not both. And it's our choice. It's actually interesting to note that in Australia, voting is required. It's mandatory. Gotta do that. You also have to rank all the choices. Here, voters have a lot of options. So even though as a voter, you will definitely have a greater, a more powerful voice in the election if you give your second choice. So we'll go back to Kit's example of when she runs out to the ice cream truck and she wants the fudgesicle. I mean, she might be just like fudgesicle or bust. Like, if I can't have my first choice, I don't want anything. People can do that, right? But most people will be content with a second choice in, you know, many of our situations in life. So that gives you have more voice if you're willing to say your second choice. But if you fill out your ballot in a ranked choice election and you only want to put down one, And if your candidate is eliminated, then yep, your ballot won't count in any subsequent rounds. And that's exactly analogous to a voter who chooses not to go and vote in the second round of election. It happens all the time. States that use runoffs frequently find drop-offs, I mean, have significant drop-offs. Voters often don't come to the runoff round. Yeah, you're absolutely right, as if that can happen.
So it's my understanding then, if you did that in the first round, you would not be allowed to vote in the second round?
No, excuse me. So yeah, ranked choice voting is just another tool in the toolbox, the way elections can be conducted. And if you look all around the country, practically every state does elections differently. Here in Washington, we have open primaries. You don't have to register by party. You can vote for any candidate, for example. And we have a 2-round election. We call it the top 2 primary, and only 2 states vote that way. In Maine, where ranked choice voting is now state law for statewide elections, they keep their partisan primaries. They still run a partisan primary. You have to register by party for their primaries. They're held in June. Out of the Democratic primary will come one nominee, one candidate for each race. And out of the Republican primary, similarly, will come one candidate for each race. And then any independents or third parties can go directly to the general election. So in Maine, typically they'll see 3, 4, 5 candidates running in the general election. Not like here in Washington, we only have 2. But there'll be one Democrat, one Republican, and then any additional. So they use ranked choice voting in the framework of a primary and then a runoff. Most places that adopt ranked choice voting do a single round of balloting, because you could see when you filled out your cookie ballot that if there's no majority winner in the first round, just by counting everybody's first choices, if there's no majority winner, then we move to round 2. The ballots are recounted, but the voters don't have to come back to the polls again. The voters don't have to fill out their ballot again. We already know what they would vote for if their candidate is eliminated. So you only need to conduct one election, and that's has a lot of advantages and some disadvantages. The advantages are significant enough: cost savings to jurisdictions, a high turnout. You don't have this drop off in turnout that comes with multi-round voting. Here in Washington, we see the super low turnout in August, very low turnout in the election that chooses the top 2 that the rest of us will vote on in November. But so there's so many advantages to using ranked choice voting as a single in a single round of voting that most places that use it don't hold primaries. But right now, as Kit and Jesse told you, in Alaska, they're getting ready to vote on a new variant of a way that states could use ranked choice voting. And that's going to be, they're proposing to use it with a top 4 primary, not like we do here in Washington, top 2, but voters would, have a primary, and then the top 4 candidates move on to the general election where voters would use ranked choice voting. So lots of different ways that ranked choice voting can be used. Here in Washington, FairVote Washington is advocating in our local options bill. Local jurisdictions would have several options for how they could use ranked choice voting. The one we recommend is eliminate the primary. It's simple. It ensures a high turnout of all voices when the election is held. But sometimes there's just too many candidates to think about really meaningfully being able to choose in a single round of voting. We had 36 candidates for governor. Seattle had 21 mayoral candidates a couple of years ago. So in the local options bill, one of the options available to jurisdictions, when they have more than 5 candidates file for a race, they may go ahead and run a winnowing primary to select the top 5. and then use ranked choice voting to select the winner. That's one option that we think could be a viable way to use it.
And I just wanted, I think one of Erin's questions, hi, my name's Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi, and this is awesome. This is really clear, and I totally am stoked. I think I get it. I love it. I think one of Erin's questions was, what happens if somebody only uses option one?
Right.
Is it possible that there wouldn't be enough votes to then somebody get to that 50% plus one? And the only crazy case that could happen in that I could figure out was if there's an even number of voters and exactly half of them only voted for one choice.
Well,
and
ties can happen in any way of voting, and there has to be a way of breaking ties. In fact, just this last time we had a general election a year ago in Washington State, I think there were at least 3 city councils, Bothell and Ferndale, and I think one more that ended up having to break a tie by flipping a coin.
Yeah,
it does sometimes happen.
And with the ranked choice, I mean, it's even less likely that 50% of people would only choose to vote for one candidate, and it would be the same candidate. Like, that's just probably so minuscule that if it happened, like, we should all play the lotto.
And you have to, I mean, you have to be ready to break ties with a coin toss in any election method, and we do that now. But in the event, if it's not a tie, here, let me just quickly clarify one thing. Let's just go back to an example of Washington State. We had elections in August. We're going to now we're going to get our ballots any day soon, I think, and we'll be voting again. So if we take a race that you voted in, maybe the governor's race, for example, back in August, and we might have said that, candidate Jay Inslee got, I can't remember, 52% of the vote, something like that, in that particular race. Well, when we count the ballots in the November election, it's going to be based on the voters who voted in that election. We wouldn't say 52% of the people who voted in August, right? You have to, you count the ballots based on that election. Does that make sense what I'm saying there so far?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So mathematically, if the voter didn't mark a second choice and their candidate has been eliminated, they don't count in the 100% of voters that are still in. Where the 100% is the voters that are still, the ballots that are still viable.
So the winner in the final round will have 50% of the ballots that are still in the running at that final round. And it's a little, one of the things that we do find is that this piece of thinking through how the ballots are counted is actually quite simple. If we had you all in the room, we would be having you stand up and move around. We would do a mock election in person. It's a little bit, I like to say sometimes, it's the difference between trying to explain to you how to ride a bicycle versus just having a bicycle right here and you hop on and try it. So
for me, actually, Kit I totally get that, because once it winnows down, it's not gonna, there's just no way for it ever to even be that infinitesimal thought I had that would never happen. I thought that all the votes kept counting for some reason. I don't know why.
If somebody and there was a candidate in Maine 2 years ago when it was first used for Congress, who really didn't like ranked choice voting, and he told his supporters, only vote for me and don't list a second choice. He thought somehow that would help him. It didn't make a difference for him, but what it meant was that the voters who voted for him when he was eliminated, those voters didn't get their backup choice. It's like they went to the ice cream truck and there was no fudgesicle. They don't get a chance to say their second choice, so they're kind of out of luck. So it doesn't help him. It does diminish the voice of those voters. But fundamentally what happens is so that candidate got eliminated, all the ballots of the people who only voted for him weren't counted in the next round of counting because they hadn't listed a second choice. But when we do count all the ballots that did go on to the next round, the winner of the final round, again, will have more than half the votes of the ballots that are still viable in the last round. The people who had ranked enough candidates so that their ballot made it to the last round. And one of the best things you can do, I think I've talked enough, is to just Google ranked choice voting, YouTube, and there are so many great explainer videos that can take, we've sometimes used them in this show, and sometimes we don't. There are many that are very short. You can also go to our website, fairvotewa.org. Jesse put that, I think, in the chat. And we've got a few of our favorite explainer videos on the library page there. And you can see, dynamically watch how the votes are counted. One of the things, the most important thing to remember though, is as a voter, it's so simple. You rank your choices, as many as you want, drop your ballot in the ballot box or in the mailbox, and you're done.
That's right. The auditors are in charge of counting the ballots and making sure that that all works. So the voters don't have to count the ballots. So I think that's what they mean when they say, you know, it's too confusing for people, because I mean, there are all kinds of things that happen in the election system now. I did a training to be an election observer at one point, and I was amazed at how much was going on behind the scenes that I didn't know. So we don't have to understand all that now. We just fill out our ballots.
And I'd like to just quickly point everybody to the chat box. We are delighted to be here, Alicia. So thank you for your questions and thank you for your time and attention. And she said that, you know, she'd like to now be able to talk to people about it. Well, she thought that, you know, this prepared her to talk to people about ranked choice voting, which is wonderful. And we all want you to go and tell your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers all about ranked choice voting and how great it would be. Spread the word. But I just went ahead and put a link in the chat box. So if you're super jazzed about ranked choice voting and you want to get involved and you want to, you know, be able to talk to people about it, we host a advocacy workshop, and our field director spends time. It's a personalized workshop with lots of interaction, and she really breaks down how to talk to people about ranked choice voting in a way that's concise and clear, so that, you know, you're able to convey to them not only how it works, but how great it would be and why it would be great, and they can understand all of that message. And I know when I first learned about ranked choice voting, I kind of stumbled on, you know, oh, it'd be great because, you know, choices and rankings, but it's a great way to teach you how to talk to people about ranked choice voting. So I just put that in the chat box if anyone wants to take a look. There's one actually next week on Thursday, if that works for anybody, but they're scheduled all the time. About every 10 days. Yeah. Yeah, so that's something that I would definitely recommend. If you're really jazzed about ranked choice voting, go check that out.
And I'll also add that Kit and Jesse and their team of Ranked Choice Voting 101 presenters also present about every 10 days, and you can, at different times of day and different days of the week, and you can find those and sign up for one at our website. It's essentially the same presentation you're hearing tonight.
It's this one.
Yeah. Although it's always improving.
Thank you, Lisa.
You guys are doing such a good job with this. Yeah.
Does anyone have any more questions? We've got about 10 minutes left. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
I actually do want to give one quick shout out to Stephen Ratner, who's maybe listening on the call, because when I said this talk is always improving, I just, you know, Stephen actually got it started like more than a year ago. Yeah, maybe he'll turn on his camera and say hi.
No, I'm not on my camera, but I'll say hi.
There you are. Okay, there he is. Yeah, Stephen got this thing rolling, and Jesse and Kit, he had your job like a year and a half ago, and but he didn't have a slide deck. He had to make it first.
I actually do have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah,
of course.
So first of all, one of my personal pet peeves is the number of elections we have in this county in particular. We had 4 this year, so, and they're all expensive, and I don't recall the exact voter turnout, but I think one of them is around 15%, and it costs a lot of money to hold these elections with, you know, not good turnout. So ranked choice voting definitely helps in consolidating those elections. But my question is about Maine and the federal election. I heard they approved RCV for their federal election. So can you guys talk about that a little bit and what that'll mean?
Lisa.
Yeah.
That's
Lisa.
pretty exciting.
You want me to do
The
that one?
ins and outs of that one. Whoa.
I do want to emphasize, folks, that Kit and Jesse are volunteers doing this, and they just have done a bang-up job pulling this presentation together. And one of my jobs is to try to keep up with the current events, and it changes so fast, so quickly, so much. So we did recently, just about 3-4 days ago, it hasn't been long, it seems as though we may have had the final word in Maine for this election, that voters will be using ranked choice voting for the president, for voting for president. They have been using it for their elections for Congress since 2018. And that has not changed. So they were already knowing that they would use ranked choice voting. For example, this highly watched race, Susan Collins, she's got 3 opponents in that race. She has a Democratic opponent, and there are 2 independents, I believe, in that race. And a lot of what you read about that race does hinge on the fact that the voters who are supporting those 2 independent candidates are likely to have an actual voice in that election. They can vote for their favorite candidate first, and if neither Collins nor Sarah Gideon, I think is her opponent in the Democrat side, if neither one of them has more than 50% of the votes in the first round of counting, then the independents' voices will matter in how that election resolves itself. So that for federal races has been going on already, but now we're adding the presidential race. It has been, Maine is going first as a state using ranked choice voting statewide. They're the first state to do that. And it's stirring up the inevitable backlash from establishment parties and candidates who are not interested in seeing the status quo get shaken up. So it has been challenged all the way to the Maine Supreme Court 5 or 6 times now in the last 3 or 4 years. It's just driving people nuts there. But they're paving the way for the rest of us. It's survived every court challenge with flying colors. There's just no indication that there's anything at all unconstitutional or inappropriate about ranked choice voting. So it's making its way, though, through that sort of set of legal tests, and Maine is doing it, clearing the way for us.
Lisa, this is Aaron again.
Sure.
I'm don't know if I'm the only one a little confused by this, but with Maine and their presidential race, won't there just be 2 candidates on the ballot, or are they going to have a different ballot?
No, they actually have. I double checked. Let's see. Now here's where you'll have to check me. I believe they have both the Libertarian and the Green Party candidates appearing on their ballot in Maine. And now those, candidates have to qualify for the ballot in every single state. So those 2 candidates, Howie, help me with the last name of the Green candidate, and I'm not going to try to say their names. I should know them. Joe somebody. Yeah.
Joe Jorgensen is
Libertarian. Joe Jorgensen, exactly. Joe Jorgensen. I'm quite sure she's on the ballot in Maine. And then I think the Libertarian, the Green Party candidate also, I think.
Okay, all right.
Double check me. Yeah. So that's why it's particularly interesting. And the other reason it's really particularly interesting in Maine, and that's why the Republicans have been in the case of, this is not a partisan issue, ranked choice voting is not, but in any given region, it can become partisan, depending on who's for it and who's against it. We had the Republican governor of Utah just about a month ago come out with a full-throated endorsement of ranked choice voting. In Massachusetts, you've got former governors, Republican and Democrat, co-chairing the committee to bring ranked choice voting to the state. But in Maine at the moment, it's the Republican Party that is not happy with ranked choice voting, and they're the ones who have been bringing the lawsuits. And one of the reasons they're fighting hard to get ranked choice voting out of the presidential race is that Maine is one of 2 states that allocates its electors not winner take all, but by congressional districts. So Maine has 2 congressional districts. They'll allocate 1 elector from each congressional district, and then 2 electors for the statewide vote. So if the 1 congressional district is carried by the Republicans, there's a possibility that even though Maine leans Democratic at this point, and is likely to send their statewide electors to the Democrat, that one congressional district would like to be able to send that elector to Donald Trump. And so, hang on a second, I'm suddenly getting myself mixed up in terms of like, what's the strategy? Therefore, they don't want ranked choice voting. Oh, because now I'm gonna have to go double check. Why would they therefore not? Help me out if anybody sees the logic here, which I somehow have lost the thread of the actual logic. So why are they?
They're hoping that the Green Party will pull enough votes away from the Democrats that.
Or the other way around. I would think that they don't want ranked choice voting because
they don't want it.
They think that the independent votes will accrue to the Democrats. So with ranked choice voting.
Yes, that's exactly it. They're hoping to benefit from the vote splitting in the congressional district that does have has the most Republican voters, and they're hoping that having a plurality of Republican voters will then get them one more elector. And it's been worth working really, really hard for that because, of course, on the national level, one electoral vote could end up making a difference. So it's been a really interesting dogfight up there over ranked choice voting, but it does look as though they're going to use it. Now it has been approved for the presidential race. So Stephen, that was a super long answer to your question.
Thank you for answering. And because I have the benefit of Google while you were talking, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Joe Jorgensen are the candidates running in Maine.
3. Okay, so I know the Green Party candidate was trying to get on the ballot there. Truly, almost every day, like the news changes out of Maine. It's wild there.
No Kanye West either. So.
Okay, that's right. That's right. So just 3 candidates. Interesting.
Yeah, they started printing the ballots in Maine, so I think it's done.
This is Monica. I just wanted to offer like a quick anecdote that I was born and raised in Maine, but left there before they enacted like doing ranked choice voting. And I guess I just wanted to say, like, I don't have friends or family that are like, this is awful. Like, I feel like that they, have really kind of embraced it as voters. I don't hear like feedback to say that, it was difficult or anything. And Maine has definitely changed over the years for a long time. Sorry if you hear something in the background, I have a tired toddler.
Okay.
They used to be a much more kind of blue state, and they have since really kind of become not necessarily a red state, but there's a lot more mixture there. So I think that things have changed over time, and it's really nice to see Maine doing something that is changing things and kind of changing up what can happen just for them. So I really support that. And that's part of why I signed up to do this tonight, is because I feel like I'm really just proud of my home state for doing that and wanting to see like, let's keep that going somehow. So, but I feel like, voter wise, it's been like positive feedback that I've heard.
Yeah. Excellent.
If you show up at one of our events, and you say you're from Maine, people are going to say, oh, that's so wonderful. You're from Maine. No, people from Maine are in the ranked choice voting world for sure. Yeah. And most of them seem to like it. I have definitely met a few people who said they don't like it, but that doesn't seem to be the prevailing view. Yeah.
Yeah, most of us don't like the current method a lot. There are a lot more of us that don't like that. Yeah. So I notice it's 8 o'clock, and I thank you all for your attention and your wonderful questions.
Thank you again. I would like to thank you all for presenting and joining us and bringing this information to our Commons community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
Yes, thank you so much for having us, and everyone have a great night.
Yeah. And now, obligatory Zoom wave. Bye. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Oops.